Hi there and welcome to today's jazz guitar lesson. In this lesson I'd like to teach you about some of my favourite jazz guitar voicings called shell voicings. Now if you've ever taken a lesson with me you'll probably will have come across these chords in one of our lessons because they are some of my favourite kind of jazz chord voicings to use. So this lesson can either be used as a resource if you want to kind of review some stuff I've looked at in a lesson, or if you're just another guitarist on YouTube and somewhere, feel free to go on my website as well, because I actually have an accompanying article with this lesson, and all the stuff we're going to be talking about is there in tab and notation. So if you want to check out these shell voicings to get into your jazz guitar playing, they're great, and many jazz guitar players use them because you can form basically any type of jazz chord you'll ever need from just from using sort of two chord positions on the neck, which will get zoomed in and we'll get them checked out in a minute. But before I begin the lesson, I'd just like to say I've also got 2 free jazz guitar ebooks available. One has 10 must-know jazz guitar licks, and I have some video lessons for these jazz guitar licks on my YouTube channel. And the second one's called Effective Guitar Scale Practice, and that has some of my favourite ways that I like to practice scales so that they kind of stick in your ears and they stick in your fingers. So if you'd like to get 2 free jazz guitar ebooks, you can just sign up to my newsletter and I'll get them sent to you ASAP. Now, if I just asked you to play a C major 7 voicing, most jazz guitarists will probably play something like this. And there's nothing wrong with that, it sounds great when you have to play kind of 4/2 bar stuff. You know, it sounds great for that kind of thing, but if you're playing maybe in a combo with a piano player, a bass player and a drummer, and you're playing big chords like this, it might work and there's absolutely nothing wrong with them. But one chord voicing that I like to use a lot in these situations and in all kinds of different situations are what's referred to as shell voicings. Now, what do I mean by shell voicing? Well, if we take this C major 7 that we just looked at, now what do we need to make a C major 7 chord? Well, we need the 3rd to tell us if it's major or minor, which in this case is the E note there, 9th fret of the G string, and we need the 7 to tell us if it's a major 7 or a dominant 7. So that's only 2 notes. We don't really need the 5th. It might fill it out a bit, but we don't need that. And the root, well, the bass player's got the root. So all we need to get the sound of C major 7 really is 2 notes. And now this kind of voicing where we just use 2 notes to define the chord, it's called a shell voicing because that is the shell of the chord. You know, that is for it to be a C major 7, we really need these 2 notes. I mean, it could be a C major 6, whatever, but for most type of chords we do need 2 notes to define them, especially with jazz chords. So that's, Danny Gatton refers to that as the 2-note wonder because it kind of fits a lot of stuff. So that's a C major 7. So okay, so we know that works for a C major 7. That's cool. But what if we needed to make a minor 7? Well, to get a minor 7 we have to lower the 3rd to get a flat 7, which is also a dominant 7 chord. And if we lower the 3rd, we get an E flat and a B flat, which gives us our C minor 7 chord. So just with these 2 notes we can get the entire essence of the chord. And now if you're comping in a situation with a piano and a bass player, you could just use these 2 chords, but if you want, when you're practicing these, I would recommend, at first at least, having root just so you can kind of see and hear how it works. And then if you practice with a root, you can practice them in different keys: G major 7, A major 7, B major 7, C major 7. You might practice in the root, but in a performance situation you're probably not going to use one. So the main extension that I'd like to talk about in this kind of voicing is the dominant 7th chord, because the dominant 7 chord is one of the most interesting chord types we can get, because it takes a lot of different extensions, and this shell voicing is particularly useful for applying different extensions to. So if we just get this one in C, it's the B flat there on the 8th fret of the D string, and the E in the 3rd on the 9th fret of the G, and you can have that. I like to pull my thumb over to get the root there on the low E string, the C. Now, okay, so we know that's for shell, we know that's the essence of the C dominant 7 chord. So what if you want to play a C13? Well, A is the 13th of C7. All we have to do is put our pinky down, then we've got a C13. And that's kind of based off this shell chord. If you want to get a flat 13, just move the pinky down. Want to get a sharp 11? We have to refinger it a bit. We put our first finger there and then play the guide tones with these 2 fingers. We can get a sharp 11, but we're still basing the chord off these 2 guide tones here. Now you can put a 5th in if you want, but that's not really too much of an extension, and that voicing's pretty naff, so if it were me I probably would use that if I wanted to have the 5th on top. But anyway, so we can get the 13th, we can get a flat 9, we can get a natural 9. Now personally, what I do most of the time if it were me, well, you can actually, if you want a 9th, you can buy your first finger across so you get the 5th in as well. But personally, I like to sound a bit more if I have the 13th as well, so I'll kind of bar these 2, the top 2 strings on my first finger. So already we must have had about 4 or 5 different kind of dominant 7th chords, and this shell chord, it's also good to use for creating some kind of altered tensions as well. So we might have looked at that, the flat 13. We could have a flat 13th with a natural 9th. We could have a natural 13th with a flat 9th. Like a diminished chord, kind of. We could have a flat 13 and flat 9. We can have a flat 13 and a sharp 9 there. And then maybe we can get a sharp 13. Well, that'd just be a flat 7, wouldn't it? But you get the idea. There's a lot we can get with these shell chords just by moving our fingers up or down a couple of frets. And on my website I've written down a little chart called Possible Dominant 7th Extensions, and that shows you all the kinds of dominant 7th extensions we can get. And I find that these kind of chords really useful, because I used to see charts that had strange chords like flat 13th, flat 9th, and I'd spend a lot of time trying to find them when I was learning jazz guitar. But now one thing I almost always do is just get these guide tones and then bass the chord I want off that, because that'll give you any, or at least a majority of the dominant 7th extensions you'll need to know. Now the interesting thing about these shell voicings, we know there's a C major 7th there, C dominant 7, C minor 7. And by the way, these extensions you can obviously apply them to, like the minors, that would be like a major 7th or a major with a 13th on top, or a major 6, however you want to think about it. Or you can get like a minor 11th chord, that's a nice one, minor 9th. But I just did the dominant 7th in more depth because that is one of the most interesting kinds of chords that we can add extensions to. Now the interesting thing about these chords is that these 2 notes here, the B and the E, we can flip these notes around, meaning that we have the E on the lower string and the B on the high string, which will mean that we need to move the shape down the neck here. So just to recap there, we had a B and an E here, and if we switch them around we have an E and a B. and that gives us the C major 7 down here as well. And likewise we can do the same. We have, for the dominant 7th, we have a B flat and an E. So we can have an E and a B flat, and we can have the C as the root again. With a C minor 7, that was a B flat and an E flat. So we can have the E flat on the bottom this time, and the B flat on the top. And then you can start to do the exact same thing with the you can start to get your dominant 7th chord, and you can put your extensions on 9th, flat 9th, sharp 9. The Hendrix chord is based off a shell voicing. There's many you can have. You can have a sharp 11. That's with a flat 9. But as I say, I have written out all these on my website, so you can check them out in your own time. And one thing I'd recommend doing at first, you can use extensions if you want, but maybe start to look at using them in a musical progression, just like a blues. Maybe start up here, a blues in C, and just use the bare extensions. You might only use one rhythm, like a Charleston rhythm. And maybe you can switch between them to voice lead into the other chords, that kind of thing. Thanks for checking out today's YouTube jazz guitar lesson. If you enjoyed this lesson, please click the like button below. And if you subscribe to my channel, you'll get notifications when I have new jazz and blues guitar lessons. If you're interested in learning jazz guitar chords and comping techniques, I have an ebook on my website called 30 Days to Better Jazz Guitar Comping, in which I have in-depth explanations and musical examples and the various kinds of different jazz comping and chordal techniques. So if you want to go ahead and check it out, there's a link to that in the below in the about box to this video. So thanks again for checking out this YouTube jazz guitar lesson, and I'll see you in the next lesson.